Welcome, friends! It is I, LostScarf, and it's time for an introductory guide to Paladins. I know the game's only been out for a week, but a guide feels very necessary. Despite the fact that the game's only been out for a week, there are new players coming in every day, and the older players already, just a week old, are just getting ignored to the newer players because they don't understand how the game works. And you understand why, though. You kind of just get dumped into the game. You don't really get much instruction on how the game works. You just have to figure out as you go along. And new players usually just focus on kills and don't really do objectives, when objectives are the way to win the game. So this guide is built here to help new players understand the game from the beginning so that they can just do well. It's basically the tutorial for Paladins right now is my goal here, so you understand how the game works so you can play well from the start, know what to do so that it doesn't aggravate the older players who are only a week older than you. But it's just because people are BMing each other really bad. It's only been a week, and people are getting really salty. This is unnecessary, but that is just how games are these days. It's very unfortunate how team-based games just have people like that. But the hope here is you understand the game from the start, you play it well from the start, you don't treat it like a deathmatch mode. That way, you just do well from the start, and you don't have people yelling at you, you don't have people getting mad at each other. It's very unnecessary to get mad. It is a game after all, but it is what's happening. So, hopefully this guide will make things better. And of course, this is my viewpoint, my opinion on how things should be done, how you should understand the game. So if anyone disagrees with that or feels like I did not elaborate enough, you can say that in the comments. That way viewers have more they can look at to understand the game. We're going to go over the basic overview of the game, we're going to go over the champions in the game, the card system, capturing points, siege engines, gates and vaults, miscellaneous details, and the balance between when to kill and when to do objectives. This is a very important part to talk about. And so we're going to take a lot of look at all these things, and then we'll have an even more in-depth look at the champions in a future guide as well, so you have just a basic idea how they work. Maybe 30 seconds about each champion, so you understand how they work, just to have a better understanding of the game going forward as well. So, let's get started. General overview. So Paladins in its current form is a 5v5 action shooter that uses unique card system for leveling. It's a very interesting system, we'll talk about that later on. And you fight in first-person and third-person view at different times, depending on what you're doing at the moment, and it's very interesting how that works out. Now what happens is there's 3 capture points on the map, but only one is active at a time, and both teams are fighting over that capture point. You're both trying to fill up your meter to 100%. When the meter fills up to 100%, you build a siege engine. This is the next stage of the game. Now, the attacking team that has the engine will escort that engine to the enemy's 2 gates and finally a vault to win the game, while the team that didn't capture the point, of course, has to defend by destroying this engine and trying to kill the enemy champion so they have less of them attacking the gates and eventually the vault. That's really the goals going on here. You win the game by the engine destroying the vault. What happens is it destroys a gate, destroys a second gate, and then finally there's a vault to destroy. First team to do that wins the game. So when an engine gets destroyed, a new capture point gets activated, and you fight over the capture point. So that's the cycle there. Capture point, siege engine, capture point, siege engine, until the game's over. That's really just how it works. So that means the way to win the game is through objectives, not through killing. Killing is very important, and we'll go over that later on. But we're just seeing too many people treat it as a deathmatch. We're just going for kills and not enough objectives, which is aggravating to people who know how to play the game. The champions of Paladins. Now we'll have a separate guide that will go over the champions even more so. Right here we're going to talk more about the types of champions. There are 3 spectrums I feel for the types of champions, and each champion goes along these lines. And that is, you have objective champs, killer champs, and support champs. Some champs are more along the objective side, maybe they're good at killing as well. Some are more along the killer side, but they can help with objectives. And some can support really well in different ways, but they can also lean towards the other ways. Everyone is capable of capping, killing, and supporting each other in different ways. It's just how they do it. But an extreme example will be given for each one. Let's talk about objective champs first. So these are more geared towards capturing defending points and assisting defending the siege engines. Generally, these types have a defensive ability that can help them do that. And what happens is you're usually blocking damage away from the enemy while you're capping a point, or while they're attacking your siege engine while your siege engine is doing damage. Also, when it's against a siege engine, you can use this defensive ability to block siege attack from enemies and the siege engine itself so that your walls aren't taking as much damage. That's what happens there. As you might have guessed, the priority for an objective champ, of course, is to do the objectives over getting kills. They can still get kills pretty well, but getting those objectives done is really their goal. And a good example of this is Fernando. He's a walking shield wall that can protect his team on a point, or the engine itself from incoming fire. He can also shield gates and vaults from incoming fire with his shield wall as well. He's just really good at assisting by just being a wall of defense. That's what he does very well, and he's great at capping. He also has cards that reward him for being on the capping point. He can do a fair amount of damage to kill people, but really the capping point and the siege engine is where his bread and butter is. Now on the other side of that, of course, is the killer champs, and they're more about killing enemy champions and doing enough damage to them to keep them off the point than to cap the point themselves. Usually they're a little bit squishier as well, so that's why it's not so good for them to be on the point. But if they kill enough of the enemy team, then they can help out with the point for sure. They're also really good at doing a lot of damage to the engine or killing the enemy team when they're helping out their engine and stuff like that. Aggressively as well, they can do a lot of damage to the gate. They're really good at doing damage to gates and vaults as well. So of course they're more for kills over objectives, but if the objective is close to being completed by the enemy team, they really need to get in there and do something about that. That's really what's going on there. And a great example of this has got to be Pip. Pip is a low HP character. He doesn't have a lot of HP, so capping alone is a very risky thing for him, but he is able to do a ton of damage to a group of enemies because all of his attacks do splash damage. So he's able to just wreck really well. He can kill people very well from a distance. He can kill groups, he can kill one-on-one. He's just very good at doing that, but because of his low HP, he's not really good at being at the objective itself, because that requires you to physically be there, which would get him killed. And lastly are the supports. Now the supports don't hit as hard as the killers, and they don't cap as well as the objectives, but they can help out in different ways. They can heal up very well a team usually. They can also give buffs if they have the cards for it. They can also do a good amount of damage to the enemy team, just not as much as a killer can. So they're very helpful in just keeping the team alive, or just giving them buffs in different ways, and they can do work. Right now, Grok is really the only example of a support, like a strong main support right now. He can hold a point with his healing totem, he can do a lot of damage with his chain lightning, he can be very frustrating for a team to deal with. He's really good at supporting his team, and he's just great to have on a team. Just to be clear, every champion is capable of doing objectives, of killing, and of supporting in various ways, either damage or CC of some kind, or defensive means. It's just different for each champion, but I feel like some are just better in certain ways, especially because some do have cards that reward them for killing, some have cards that reward them for being on a capture point, and some reward them for being with the siege engine, attacking it or defending it. So this is just a means to simplify it a little bit. The card system. Now the card system is pretty unique to Paladins, so because of that we'll probably see a lot of changes to it as the beta goes forward, but here's what the current incarnation is. You have common cards, rare cards, epic cards, and legendary cards for each champion, and you unlock more cards through just playing the game. You get a chest from winning, you get chests from leveling, and you can buy chests with the gold when it gets implemented. Now, what happens is when you level up, 3 cards are drawn from the cards you own for a champion. Now, if you're playing with friends, you can get their cards as well to be a possible draw. At the first level, you draw from 3 commons, and you gotta pick one of them. And these cards will buff your weapon, your abilities, or your stats in some way. It might help you with the capturing, it might just help you with just general survival, maybe damage. Who knows? It really depends on what you draw. At the second level, it's also commons. At the third level, if you have 3 rares, it'll be 3 rares. If you have only 2 rares, it'll be rares and a common. At level 4, it'll be 3 epics. If you have less than 3 epics, then it'll be epics and rares. And finally, at level 5, you get legendary cards and epics if you don't have 3 legendaries. That's what happens there is, as you level up, just pick up these cards. You can level up to level 6 and beyond, but you just get stats for that. You don't get any cards after that point. An important thing to note is that when you die, your cards go on cooldown. So your stronger cards will be on a longer cooldown than your more common cards when you get killed, which means sometimes you have to wait on your buffs before you can actually be as effective as you'd like to be. So the best thing you can do is look at the cards you have for your champions and see what you could potentially draw and what playstyle you have to play with those, just to understand how you just have to play them, and what cards you could get in the future from chests to have a different playstyle with them. These cards affect your playstyle and how you play the game, which can be really good and really bad depending on just how you like to play the game. And in the future they're going to allow you to construct decks, but that's not here yet, and I don't know how that's going to work out, but it should give you maybe less RNG, maybe no RNG at all depending on how they want to implement it, but less RNG so you can play a way that you really like to play. We'll see in the future as that gets developed. Capture points. Now there are 3 capture points on the map, left, middle, and right, and each one has a unique landscape for fighting on for getting that point. Now the way the game works is you capture a point, then a siege engine spawns, that siege engine dies, and a new capture point gets activated, and you keep going till the game's over. At the start of the game, one gets activated and everyone just rushes towards it 5v5. Now, after the first siege engine goes down, you won't know which one will be the next capture point, but you will know this: it never does the same spot twice. So if the start of the game was the middle point, the next one will be left or right, and if it started right, the next one will be left or middle. It's never the same one twice. That's the only thing you know. So usually you have to split the difference as to which one you want to go to after siege engine dies, or you can commit your whole team to one side, and if you're wrong, you go over to the other spot. That's really how it works. Now, of course, both sides are fighting to fill up their bar to 100% from capturing that point. You can capture it faster if you have all 5 of your team on a point, but the filling gets stopped if even one enemy is on the point as well. This is very important, so you can have one person go in there and stall for a moment while the rest of the team's trying to show up. That's a very important thing, a tactic that you can do. A pitfall that happens, though, is too many teammates will just leave the point to go for kills instead of just having more people on the point, and then you just don't fill it up in time, and then maybe the enemy team comes back, pushes you off, and then they capture it first. That's something that can happen, and it has happened quite a few times in my experience. You want to get that point done if you can. But here's some things to consider. It is definitely best to capture a point as a team because it fills up the fastest, but when it's the start, when the enemy bar is low for fill, you can consider going for a full team wipe with the enemy team or killing most of them, then capping as a team, or you can just have everyone do what they do best. Generally, this would be like 2 objective champions capping the point while 2 killers are running around killing, and the support decides what they want to do to help out as well. That's something that you normally will see at the start. Some people are going for kills, some people going for capping, and if your team does it better than the other team, then you'll win the point outright. Now, let's say the enemy bar is about half full, which means they have the point right now. Well, then, everyone should really have their attention on the point. A lot of damage should be focused on the point to push the enemy team off. Then you have your objective guys holding that point, while your killers can run around on the outside, securing more kills, just keeping off the enemy team. But then lastly, if the bar is near full for the enemy team, which means they're on the point, you just gotta put all the focus on that point. I've already had matches where the killer champs are focusing on getting kills on enemies that are outside of the cap point, and so they just give up the siege engine, which eventually ends to losing the game. That's not a good thing to do. You gotta put the focus on the cap point when it's so close to finish. More on that is a weird thing I've seen with teammates is, I've had a team where there are 4 people on the cap point and there's only 1 enemy alive on the other team, and all of them leave the point to kill that person. Their plan is to kill them, then come back to the point. But by wasting time doing that, all of them going for that 1 kill, when they get back to the point, the rest of the enemy team shows back up, pushes them off the point, and then the enemy team gets the siege engine. This has happened a few times already. It's not a good thing to do, so don't do it. And that is a thing worth thinking about. That is numbers advantage. If you kill 2 of the enemy champions, that means you have a 5-3 advantage, which means you can fight from the cap point. Or you can have a majority of people on the cap and then have other people attacking the rest of the enemy team. You can do that. Or just have 1 person on the point and then the other 4 attacking. As long as someone's capping the point, you should be good. But if you can have more on there, the better. And the last thing to think about is, when you're going for the next capture point, do it as a team. It is better to do everything as a team, honestly, because 5 people wreck a lot better than 2 or 3. So you should probably stand in between where the next point might be, between maybe if it's between middle and left, then stand in an area between those 2 and then go to it. Now, if it's between left and right, then you got to just pick a point so you can just stand on it. And if you're wrong, you're wrong. And if you're right, you're right. But if you're wrong, you'll be coming as a team to the next point, which will wreck the other spot pretty well, I am sure. Siege engines, gates, and vaults. Now, the siege engine is how you win the game. There are 3 things that need to be destroyed. You have to destroy the first gate, the second gate, and finally the vault using the siege engine. And what happens here, of course, is you get the siege engine from capturing the points. The first engine comes out, and it's going to head towards the enemy base. And what you want to do is you want to defend it. You can either put barriers up to defend your engine, or you can go ahead and fight the enemy champions to back them off, because they're going to be shooting it to kill it before it gets there. You'll get to the first gate, and then the engine's going to attack the gate. The gate gets guns to protect it, and also the champions are going to be shooting at it to stop your engine. You can also shoot the gate. This is something beginners do not know. This is something a lot of players do not know. You can actually attack the gates when the engine is attacking it as well. That's something very helpful, so you can get the gates down sooner. It is a very good thing you can do. Also, the more objective-based champions can put up barriers to defend the engine while it's attacking. Like Fernando's shield can be put in front of attacks to protect the engine while it's shooting. Also, when you're defending, you can put a shield in the way of the engine to defend your gate when it's getting attacked. That's something that can happen. Something to note is the final objective, the vault, has no guns defending it. Only champions can defend that thing. So let's talk about the siege engines if you're on the attacking side. So you just got the point captured. That's a good advantage to you. Now your engine is going out. So the enemy team, some of them might be a little low HP from trying to capture the point away from you, and so you should try to pick them off if you can. Now, if you don't have a lot of HP yourself, you should probably regen up or heal as much as you can before helping your engine get over to the enemy team, because it's going to get shot at a lot. And the best thing you can do to defend your engine is either get in the way, depending on what character you are, or shooting the enemy team just off of it, backing them up, doing enough damage to make them retreat, or doing enough damage to kill them so they can't mess with your engine. Now, when your engine arrives at the first gate, it's going to get shot at by the gate's defenses and by enemy champion. So you have 3 options here. If you have a barrier, you can put it in front of your engine so that's not taking as much damage while it's shooting. You can shoot the enemy champions to kill them or at least wound them enough that they stop attacking for a moment, or you can shoot the gate itself to help kill the gate. And then when it comes to the vault, there's no guns there, so you don't have to worry about champions and killing the gate and defending your engine. That's all you gotta do. Something very important to note is that the siege engine does reduce damage to vaults, so it needs more player damage to finish it off. But each engine gets stronger as the last one dies. They just get better and better as you go. By the 6 or 7 engine, the game usually ends because the engine's just so strong, and it's not a bad idea to all-in destroy the vault to finish it out when you get to the 7th engine. Now, something important to think about is when the engine's at about 10% HP, it's gonna die. It's definitely going to go down. Unless you're about to destroy the vault, you should run away. You should retreat so that your teammates do not get killed before the next capture point activates. Because if you're dead, that means your card's going to be on cooldown, and that also means that you're not going to be there to help out when the next capture point is activated, which will not be a good thing. Now let's talk about the defensive side. This means you were not able to secure the point. The enemy team was, and there's no telling how many of them are left. Maybe they're all full on HP, maybe some are beat up while they got it. And if they are pretty beat up and you have enough HP on you, maybe you can pick them off so they're not able to help out their engine when it starts pushing. That wouldn't be a bad thing to do at all. But if you're low on HP, maybe you should just go back to base and start shooting the engine from a distance or close up, depending on who you are. Just hurting the engine as much as you can before it gets to your gate. This is very important. While you're hurting the engine, of course, the enemy will be trying to stop you from doing that by trying to kill you. Maybe you have to kill them instead. It's really up to you. What is more priority? Damaging the engine or hurting the enemy champion so they will not be able to attack the gate when the time comes? That is something you have to consider. And once it is at the gate, then your options are really these things. That is, you can put barriers in the way of the engine so that it's not doing as much damage for a moment. You can attack the engine as well to kill it before it's able to kill a gate or to do a lot of damage to the vault. Or you can kill enemy champions. They're not able to help the gate or they're not able to kill your teammates while you're trying to defend. Now, something important you should think about is when the engine's at about 5% HP, when it's really low, when it's about to die, you should change your attention to killing the enemy champion. You should really be doing that. At least have one person hitting the engine still, but have everyone else attacking champions, killing them so that their cards are on cooldown, and they will not be in position to take the next point once that engine goes down. Miscellaneous. Now, there's a bunch of little things to talk about, so they're all going to go right here. And the first one to talk about is the VGS system. If you have not played Smite, the VGS system is this talking kind of command setup that lets you just quickly say some things without having to use comms. So you just hit V and you'll see a bunch of letters there, and you hit other letters and you'll eventually lead up to someone saying a thing. If you hit VA1, you'll be saying attack the left, VA2, attack the middle, VA3, attack the right, hit VAA for attack in general. Same thing goes for VD. VDD for defense in general, VD and a number for defending those spots. You can hit VVVE to say you're on the way, and there's a bunch of other commands you can give out. There's also what I feel are very important, which are VVGH, hi, VVGL, good luck, and VVGF, have fun. Definitely worth saying those at the start of a match, show some goodwill right there. And just go ahead and hit V and experiment, you'll see what commands there are, which will help you out if you don't really have comms to use. Now, another thing to talk about is horses. This is usually bound to the shift key on the left side, and you're able to just quickly travel to another location. Combat dehorses you, and your horse goes on a 5-second cooldown. If you get shot, you get knocked out of your horse. If you attack, you come off your horse. And it's just really good to get to places fast, and it can be really annoying when you're trying to get away and they just shoot you off your horse. Another one to talk about is regenning. When you're out of combat, you slowly regen your HP back. If you get attacked or you attack someone, your regen stops, so you have to take that into account when regenning. Something to note, though, is defensive abilities do not stop regen. That's like putting up a shield or a barrier of some kind. That will not stop your regen. And the last thing to talk about are base-related stuff. Doors, portals, and healing areas. Not a lot of people know this, but there is a healing area for you to heal yourself at your base. You'll see these green doors. Go there, you'll get healed up pretty fast, and that'll help you out with defense. There are portals on the ground, which you'll use to go to higher ground, and then there's just doors which stay on the same level that only your side can use. So those are things you should take advantage of when you're at your base. Killing and objectives. So we should talk about the balance between killing and objectives. The objectives win the game, kills help you win the game. But if you ignore objectives for kills, you're just going to lose the game. And it's this balance that's very important. This is what's causing a lot of frustration for people, because newer players think killing is all you need to do, while the players who've been playing a little bit longer, which is a week right now, they understand how important the objectives are, because that's what wins the game. So let's talk about that. Every champion is capable of killing another champion, but some are just better at doing objectives than others, and some are better at killing than others. That's just how it is. Let's try to simplify this a little bit here. Let's say we're doing the capturing of a point. and the bar for getting filled by the enemy team is low. Well, then you consider going for just a bunch of kills. I talked about this during capture earlier. You could consider just killing the enemy team first and then everyone doing the capturing, but really it's probably best to just have your capture people do the capturing while your killers do the killing. But you can put a lot of focus on killing if you want, since it's just early on, as long as you don't get too many people killed on your side. Now, as it's starting to get filled up by the enemy team, then it should be just a lot of focus on the killers doing the killing and the objective people doing the objectives. If there's just too many of the enemy team on the point, then everyone should just be focusing on that point, of course. And when it's near full, everybody on the point. Just everybody help out with the point. Just keep it going as long as you can if you're trying to prevent the enemy from capturing. But it's not just a balance of kills and objectives at the capture points. There's also at the engines. I've had too many instances where a team will try to kill 1 or 2 champions while the engine's just getting destroyed by the other 3 enemy champions, and then it just gets destroyed before it actually does any damage to a gate. That's not a good thing to do. You gotta not let that happen. You can have some people try to just deal with enemy champions, but there has to be some at least pushing up the engine and starting attack gates or attacking champions to back them off the gates or defending the engine. And it's the same thing for the other side. They have to know, should they be killing enemy champions or just attacking the engine? What should they be doing right now? And it really depends on the HP of themselves and their opponents and how far that engine is and just how strong it is. It can get really frustrating for the attacking side or the defending side when it comes to kills and objectives, because sometimes an engine will be very close to killing the vault, but it gets destroyed before it does so because only one champion is attacking the vault while everyone else is trying to get kills. And it goes the other way around, where the vault is about to be destroyed, the engine's also about to be destroyed, and the vault gets destroyed because teammates are too busy killing champions instead of the engine. This can happen and has happened and can be very aggravating. You have to know when is the right time to do the engine, when's the right time to kill champions. Usually the engine should be more focused on, and then champions after the engine's gone, depending on the situation. But that's the balance you gotta think about. The one point in the game where killing is the only thing you should be thinking about is the time before a capture point activates. If you can catch some stragglers as a team, moving as all 5 of you together, if you can catch some stragglers as the capture point is about to activate, that'll be less trouble when you have to capture a point, which will just make your life a lot easier. In conclusion, I did just throw a ton of information at you, and it's going to take a while for it to sink in. And that's fine. Like, you're new to the game. This is a lot of information I'm giving you, but this is because I want you to encounter less BM and less salt from your teammates. It's a very unfortunate time we're in, where just even in this closed beta, where it's only been out for a week, that people are so salty, but that's just how it is. And I want you to have a funner time, a more comfortable time. So hopefully you learned a lot from this guide to help you understand the game when you're going in there, and just do better. That's what's important, for you to do better, so you just have less trouble from everyone else. That's the idea there, and if you have to watch the guide a few times to get those ideas, then go for it. But there are 2 important things to think about. That is, this is a guide, it's not a law on how to do things. This is my viewpoint on how you can improve and just understand the game from the beginning to do well in it so you don't get BM'd as much. I've only played about 20 to 30 hours in the first week of Paladins being out. I'm going to play a lot more, but this is how I feel things will help you out right now. The other is that patches will be coming out because it is a closed beta, and any of them could fundamentally change the game in a big way or in subtler ways. The idea for this guide was to just give you a lot of information, a lot of ideas, so that it will help you out regardless of what big changes may happen, for the most part. There could be a huge difference though, but I feel that I've covered all the subjects well enough that it will still aid you well even in a couple months, unless they just make the mode completely different. So in summary, you should have a good understanding of capturing points, of siege engines attacking and defending, the balance between killing and objectives, just how your champion works, what should your priorities be, and how to play as a team, and of course just having fun. At the end of the day, that's what it's about, having fun playing Paladins. And I hope you have a lot of fun, and it overcomes any salt or BM you encounter as you go forward. Of course, you should try to share with your friends as well. If you're introducing them to the game, I hope this guide will be very helpful to them as well, just so we just have better play in general and just, less salt and BM. I keep bringing it up because that's something I don't want you to have. I really don't want that to be an encounter you have. It may still happen, but hopefully it'll happen less thanks to this guide. In the future, there will be a more in-depth guide for the champions, just a quick rundown, maybe 30, 60 seconds for each one, talking about their abilities and the things they can do, just so you have a better idea there, and that guide will come out in the near future. We'll also be doing weekly gameplay videos for each champion, one for each week, and that will show just even more examples of how these champions work. So that right there is the guide. I hope you found it helpful and that it'll help you have fun in Paladin, because that's what it's all about, isn't it? Having fun. Thanks for coming by, and See you next time.